So I'm here with Michele Levine from Roy Morgan Research, who's in New Zealand to present the Customer Satisfaction Awards. And we're going to talk now about the winners of those awards. To see all the winners, you can go to customersatisfactionawards.com. So that's customersatisfactionawards.com, and that's one word. So in 4 days' time, you're going to be presenting these awards, and there'll be a bunch of happy marketing executives, presumably.
Yes.
Well,
there'll be 24 very happy companies, I think.
Yes.
And we find marketing executives, we find often the CEO of the company will come along.
Yeah.
Because the organisations treat these customer satisfaction awards really seriously. People love to get feedback that their customers are happy with them. It's a terrific feeling. It
is, and I mean it's what we all attempt to achieve, I suppose, because that's what makes people to buy things and makes people come back.
Sure.
So, in terms of the winners, we won't read out the list of all the winners. I mean, there's domestic airline of the year is Air New Zealand. International airline of the year is Singapore Airlines, which possibly not that unexpected. But some of these results are kind of interesting and curious. So, for example, in retail department store of the year, we have Kirkcaldy and Staines, which happens to be my landlord, among other things. And I quite like them, but they seem a very small and quite old-fashioned brand in retail, and perhaps one that's not even performing that well.
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, what this data shows is that people who shop there are very satisfied. Now, if the number of people shopping there is getting smaller and smaller, which, as you suggest, might be the case, perhaps what this is showing is that the people who are still shopping there are the truly satisfied customers. I mean, that's one of the really interesting points here. Customer satisfaction, or satisfying your existing customers, isn't the be-all and end-all. Customer satisfaction is important, but you still obviously need to get people through the door. And Alastair, you'd be interested to know that in politics, I've seen situations where you've actually had a party at their lowest ebb ever. The least number of people saying they intend to vote for them, and their leader satisfaction is really high. Because
amongst those people?
Among those people who are still going to vote for them, because all the others have left. So you've got the rusted on, very supportive ones still there. So that may be an explanation there, but I think what we're seeing here is that the people who are choosing to shop there and shopping there are satisfied, or telling us that.
So they won seven months out of 12,
yes.
Which is pretty impressive, really. I mean, they're up against some big organisations. That's pretty consistent performance, though. I think these annual awards are probably going to be a little bit more consistent than the monthly ones. I think,
yes, the annual awards will be the one that you really take notice of, I think. Overall, that's when you get the award. Although, you know, obviously each of the companies will be looking at how they're performing on an ongoing basis. And we're actually seeing that the companies that are looking at their customer satisfaction will often come to us and say, look, we've been doing this, we've been doing that, we've been trying much better at the service counter, and we thought we were doing well, and then our customer satisfaction seems to have dropped. What can be driving that? So people and our clients will be looking at this on an ongoing basis once they start getting serious about customer satisfaction.
And drilling in deeper to try and find out what's going on.
Drilling in deeper, yeah. I mean, they'll be drilling in deeper to see which of their clients or their customers are satisfied and which aren't. And then they'll also be drilling into their competitors' customers and saying, well, what is it that my competitors are doing that I'm not doing? And who are they satisfying?
So, music book store of the year, one of the interesting things about the retail sector is the overall level of satisfaction is highest amongst pharmacists. So just to clarify how people are measured here, the percentage of people who say that they're very satisfied or fairly satisfied with a customer is what determines who wins on a monthly basis, and who wins that on the most months then wins the award.
That's correct.
However, within different categories, there's different levels of satisfaction achieved overall, and pharmacies are the highest, followed by bookshops. Do we know what's going on there?
Well, look, pharmacies always do extremely well. Every time we measure anything to do with things like trust and honesty and ethics, pharmacists, along with doctors and nurses, are right up there at the top. Right. So they do seem to hold a nice place in our hearts. So, you know, that maybe is what's going on there in terms of the overall levels of satisfaction. Bookstores, I'm not quite so sure why those things are performing very well. I suspect, though, that the people who are still going to bookstores rather than going online, because we're seeing bookstores disappearing, are probably the ones that truly do love bookstores.
Right.
So they're fairly satisfied with the ones that are still there.
So in the other retail categories, we had Harvey Norman was the furniture and electrical store of the year. They've been advertising very, very aggressively in New Zealand for the last 6 months, or the last, I don't know, couple of years, I suppose. Did they perform very well in Australia as well?
I think they've done fairly well, yeah. But it's not necessarily, advertising can help, there's no question. Advertising will help to make people aware and therefore feel comfortable going into a place. And the funny thing about satisfaction is that it isn't just about the factual things, it's all about how people feel. It's all about how they feel when they're there, how they feel about the after effects of it. You know, if the product works or doesn't work, that can have an impact on satisfaction. All of those kinds of things.
So if we then move into the technology sector, we see that the Apple iPhone is the mobile phone handset of the year. I suspect that's consistently won that for several years in New Zealand and Australia.
There's no question Apple is doing an extremely good job. People just seem to love their Apple gear. They really do. It's just sitting right there as the one that everyone has to try and beat.
Yeah.
And I think the other companies will be trying to beat it, but it's still sitting there very solidly in both Australia and New Zealand.
So the other company that did outstandingly well in the technology area in the satisfaction awards is 2 Degrees, who topped the mobile service provider award of the year, and I think they did that on a fairly consistent basis through the year. Is that correct?
That's right. They've done very well throughout the whole year.
So we're talking about 2 Degrees and challenger brands doing well.
Yes, often you find that a company that's a smaller brand will actually outperform the major brand. And we think that what's going on there is that people will often, without thinking about it, go for the major brand. That's where they'll actually choose to buy their mobile phone or take their home phone service or their electricity or whatever. That's the kind of place you normally go. Those people who've made an active choice to go outside that will often be more satisfied. They've actually explored, they've perhaps had recommendations, they've taken control, they've taken an active decision. I'm going to go with that player. And unless that player actually really seriously disappoints them, they already begin with a fairly good, solid feeling about it.
So I think we see that also in the Home Phone Provider of the Year award, which has been won by Vodafone. Yes. Which is primarily reselling telecom services and Chorus's services, although now it's everybody's a reseller of Chorus's services in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting. We tend to look at these things, once we get into the category or the industry, we say, well, hang on, that's not a real mobile phone, or that's not a real one of these. From the customer's perspective, it's who they're dealing with. Yep. If that's the person they're paying, that's the person that they deal with, that's the website they go to, whatever it is, that's the company that they feel they have a relationship with. And that's how they're going to make their judgment about satisfaction.
So it's interesting. I mean, Vodafone is marketing of its home phone services has been about bundling them with the Sky TV services. And so people are very satisfied with the fact that Vodafone is giving them television along with their home phone, and then they're happy with their home phone provider.
Well, they may well be. They may well be.
It's a curious.
You know, it's really interesting. We look at these things. All I can say is this is the sum of asking people,
what?
How satisfied are you?
Yeah.
And you know, we could discuss for hours.
Why?
What is it? And I think what we'll see is this is really the beginning of the discussion. The people, particularly those who haven't quite won the awards, will be looking and saying, what do we need to do to get there? Which of our customers aren't that satisfied? Which services that we're providing are they using? Maybe there needs to be some improvement there. Or they'll be saying, well, do we just have a really broad, amorphous group of people that we're servicing, and it's going to be very difficult to service everyone? But I think all of the industries will have companies within them saying, what does this mean? Could it mean this? Could it mean that? And I think now the information is available to drill down into, to start doing that.
And find out. So another example, Energy Online, top electricity provider of the year, and they're a new entrant to the market as
Yes.
well.
Yep. And they've done consistently well since they entered the market. People have been very happy with them.
They have. I mean, they won 10 months out of the last 12,
Yep.
which is spectacularly well. And they beat out Meridian Energy and Trustpower, which both of which have historically performed very well in surveys of this kind, as far as I know.
Yes. One of the interesting things we've seen in utilities, and it's a funny market to be in, because essentially you can be going along providing a good service, because it's kind of hard to provide a bad service as an ongoing thing. But this is an industry or a category where basically people seem to switch when somebody makes them an interesting offer. So they tend not to kind of be particularly dissatisfied, but they're interested enough to respond to an offer. So people who offer green energy will often get people switching to them for green energy. And the other players in the market will go, hang on, we've had green energy,
But
nobody told us about it.
Yeah.
So this is probably a market where it's really ripe for a new entrant to come in and say, hey, here's what we do, here's what we offer, and people think, gee, that's terrific, I really like that. Not having gone back and done a line-by-line comparison to what they've already got or what the other players will offer.
Well, I think that quite nicely segues into the finance category, which is also another one which is kind of highly competitive. And there we see Kiwibank take out the award for their major bank of the year, which means a bank with over 7.5% of customer share. And they consistently, they won it every month. They have a zero.
Good for them.
They have a zero fees thing. The other key obvious thing about them is that they are New Zealand owned, and
Yes.
they have nationalistic sort of characters
Yes.
to their brand.
Is that what drives satisfaction? Gee, Alastair, I don't know. I think being New Zealand owned probably helps to encourage people to bank with them. I think it's probably, perceived as quite a good thing. I can't imagine it would be seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of satisfaction, I think really it's probably about the experience, and it's probably also about who their customer base is. As I said earlier, with particular products and services, if those products and services are complex or highly value added, like if you're promising a lot, it's a lot easier to disappoint than if you've got a relatively simple offering and a relatively undemanding target audience, or a relatively undemanding group of customers.
Okay. So, I mean, in the Financial Institution of the Year, which is the secondary layer of financial institutions, we see Southland Building Society, PSIS, and the TSB, which again are localised, highly regionalised banks, which also have that narrower product range.
Probably. I mean, it's always, it would be a case of drilling down and seeing, which products do the people have who are really particularly satisfied. But overall, these are the banks that people who bank with them, their customers are very satisfied with the experience.